Hello, how are times yours? Judy Shields here. Today we welcome film historian, commentator, and author Jeremy Arnold. Hey Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm really well, Judy. How are you?
I'm fabulous. So where are you dialing in from?
I am in Los Angeles, basically in Hollywood.
Oh, right, Hollywood. That's great. We have some great weather. I guess we got some rain coming though, right? I've heard that's coming.
Yes, yes, it's coming. It's coming.
And we can always use it. Folks, today we're here to talk to Jeremy about this must-have viewing guide for the holidays, Turner Classic Movies Christmas in the Movies, Revisited and Expanded Edition. I have it back there, but here it is. It's beautiful. Hardback. It's the most amazing book I've ever seen. It's beautiful. Let's talk about the cover.
Thank you. You're very kind.
No,
I
I'm
appreciate
honest.
it. What would you like to know about the cover?
Well, first about the cover. I mean, you chose the most amazing movie. I always like to know why the cover and what, you know.
Well, I'll tell you. That photo from White Christmas, it's not really on the cover just because or it's not there because I think it's the greatest Christmas movie. It's not my favorite. I mean, I like it fine, but there are others
Yeah,
I like more.
exactly.
But the thinking was, they wanted color, and I wanted an older movie and not something from the 90s or beyond. And most of the older films are black and white. And so White Christmas was really the earliest color film in the book for which there were really appropriate Christmassy photos. Um, and this is the one we went with, and I'm really happy with it. I think it looks very striking too.
It does. It really, really does. Shows Christmas, especially. 35 classic movies to celebrate the season. Why did you choose these particular 35 movies in your new book?
Well, first, let me say this is the new edition of a book that I originally published about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And that book was 30 classics to celebrate the season. So this is the same book plus a lot of new additional material. And part of that additional material are five new to the book movies that get their own full-fledged chapters. I've also worked in a bunch of special chapters, essays about other facets of Christmas movie history, which enabled me to write about dozens of other movies that I think are really important to the world of Christmas movies. So it's a little bit of a misnomer that it says 35 because it's actually a lot more than 35 that are written about in the book. But that being said, the five that I added to the main ones, um, there were, I think, three from the like classic era and two from the modern era. And there were some that I hadn't had room for in the first one because the first book was desired to be smaller. But now I had more room, more words, more higher page count. And so I threw in It Happened on Fifth Avenue, which is a classic that's beloved by TCM fans in particular, because TCM is really responsible for bringing that back into the public eye about 10 or 15 years ago. Now it's a favorite of many. What else? The Cheaters, which is a very obscure B movie from 1945, which I thought TCM fans in particular would be happy to discover because it's so unknown. And Cash on Demand, which is a British film, a suspense thriller set in a bank and about a bank heist starring Peter Cushing. And it's a very subtle variation on A Christmas Carol. So it's fascinating to see how the story is transposed to this type of movie. And then The Preacher's Wife with Denzel Washington and Whitney Houston, remake of The Bishop's Wife. And finally, a French film called Joyeux Noel from 2005, which I love, and I wish more people would see this. It's set during World War I, and it's about the famous Christmas truce that happened in real life along many sections of the front line. So it sort of shows the power of Christmas to overcome war in a way, at least in a movie. Really interesting.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen that. I mean, there's with all these movies, folks, it's like you buy this, what an amazing holiday gift. You can still get it in time for Christmas. Such an amazing book to give out. So look, you got 17, 18 years. If you do two movies a year, it'll last you that long. So and more. And you hand it down to your grandkids and it keeps going.
That's true.
So I love the pictures, behind the scenes stories of production and legacy, and the holiday moments. So tell us about some of those holiday moments. Did you write those or inspired by you?
Yeah, so this was actually an idea that my editor gave me when I did the first book. They just wanted to sort of liven up the layout of the book a little bit, and so I had done a book called The Essentials for TCM and a sequel, The Essentials Volume 2. And in those books, after each sort of write up, there was a section called What to Look For. And, something unique and interesting to that title. Maybe it was innovative in its filmmaking technique. Maybe it's a beloved moment or line of dialogue, really anything. And so the equivalent to that was what we came up with for this holiday moment. So the idea was I would just find one moment in each movie that seems to really epitomize or capture the holiday or the way that film treats the holiday. So in some cases, it's just a really, indelible, famous moment, like Judy Garland singing "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," or God, what are some of the others? In A Christmas in Connecticut, I chose the scene where they have this sort of, it's a square dance in a
Yeah.
big community barn, and it's all set up for Christmas time with decorations. It's like the Christmas dance for this town, and that really epitomizes how this is a World War II era movie, which really captures the flavor of small town life in the home front, even though it's also a raucous comedy. So yeah, there's big variety of holiday moments.
I'll have to share this, folks. Look at Christmas in Connecticut from the Los Angeles Public Library, which I work across the street from. And I had never seen this movie. Can you imagine? So because of your book, I went and rented it, and I just saw it this weekend. And it's just, I love it. I love this movie. And that's what I love about
It,
this book.
it's so fun. It's just such a pure comedy
Yes.
that's so of its era and yet speaks to modern times too because of the Christmas element, I think. And Barbara Stanwyck can do no wrong. She's the best.
And then the Uncle Felix character, the chef,
Cuddles to call, yeah.
love him. Such a great movie. So that's the best thing about this book is, especially with TCM, you can see movies that way. Oh, sorry, which I do that. But I like to rent movies because I ride the train and then I watch them on the train. So that's why I like to rent movies like that. So it's great. And like I said, thanks for the book. The other question is, other than TCM Reference Library, which I know you get to use that, was there any other places that you obtained your research and photos? The photos are amazing in this book.
Thanks. Well, for the research, I spent a lot of time at the Academy's Margaret Herrick Library, which is a great resource in LA that has pretty much every film book ever written and incredible archives of past trade papers and journals. And there's special collections of countless notables through the years who left all their papers and diaries and so on. So it's a major archival research facility, and it's only about 15 minutes away from me. So I sort of lived there when I was doing this book. As for the photos, a lot of them came from an image database that was made available to me because it's operated by Warner Brothers, and TCM is part of the Warner Brother Discovery empire. And so that was easy to do. And I just chose what I wanted, and the publisher took care of getting them and using them. But there were quite a few photos that I couldn't find in that database and one or two others that I used a little bit. And so in some cases, I bought actual prints off eBay. I
Oh,
went to some
wow.
collector shops. I just did some research and found, a couple of photos were lent to me by some collector friends who had some. And so I scanned them, and then they were beautifully restored by a professional photographer and film historian and author called Mark Vieira,
Oh, wow.
named Mark Vieira, and he really made these photos look spectacular. So I'm really happy with that, because in the first edition of the book, the photos didn't get that treatment, and so they don't look quite as good as they do now.
Oh, wow. They are stunning. Good job.
Thank you, thank you.
So as a young boy, what was your earliest memory of a Christmas movie? Like what do you remember first seeing?
Oh wow, it's a good. No one's ever asked me that. As a young boy, I don't think I was really aware or into the idea of Christmas movies, but probably I mean, you know what? It was probably It's a Wonderful Life, because I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and that was the era where It's a Wonderful Life was in the public domain, and it saturated local television stations in every city across America, sometimes playing like 6 times in one day. I mean, it just was always on. And I remember I'd watch it and then I'd flip to another channel, and I would pick up from the middle again, and I'd watch more. And you could do that all day long if you really wanted to. And I actually think that phenomenon went a long way towards creating the whole concept of Christmas movies. Because of course, It's a Wonderful Life was not made as a Christmas movie. The term didn't exist in the 40s. Frank Capra never said, "I'm making a Christmas movie." It's something that we have applied retroactively to old movies that we now see incorporate Christmas to a degree that we want to experience it every year. Uh, but because, ironically, because It's a Wonderful Life was playing so much in the 70s and 80s, it got audiences used to the idea of seeing it at Christmas time and seeing any Christmas themed movie at Christmas time. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
Wow, that's news to me. I love that. You just kind of take it for advantage. That's a Christmas movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, today's Christmas movies
Yeah.
are a genre because something is a genre if the filmmakers behind it acknowledge that's what it is. I mean, you say, "I'm making a Western, I'm making a musical." Okay, you know what that means. But only in the last 20 or 30 years have filmmakers consciously said they're making Christmas movies.
Yeah, that does make sense. So I have to ask, so is there a favorite Christmas movie of yours, and why is it your favorite?
Well, I mean, I often say It's a Wonderful Life, but it's kind of a cliched answer, and we just talked about it. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a great movie. I mean,
yeah,
it's great because it gives a complete emotional experience.
yeah,
And, we remember the joy of the ending, the uplift, but
yeah.
there's an awful lot of trauma along the way. And that movie delves very deep into despair. I mean, it's about a man trying to commit suicide. So,
Oh,
because of that, there's a huge range of emotion between the extreme of being suicidal to the extreme of the ending on the other end of the spectrum, where everyone is coming to his rescue and showering him with love and friendship. But there is another movie that I'm really, really fond of that I would encourage people to seek out if they don't know it. It's from 1940. It's called Remember the Night, and it stars Barbara Stanwyck yet again and Fred MacMurray, 4 years before they did Double Indemnity. And this is a really heartfelt, poignant, uh, romantic comedy drama about an assistant DA in New York who falls in love with this woman that he's prosecuting for shoplifting. And through some plot devices, they end up spending Christmas together at his family's childhood home in Indiana. And they fall in love, and Christmas is really used to define these characters. And it's almost like a catalyst for them to fall in love. And they fall in love during the Christmas season. And then the question becomes, well, now they have to go back to New York and finish this trial. What's going to happen? He's now in love with her, so he's not going to want to prosecute her. So the film goes from there.
oh my gosh, I gotta get that one. There's another one I haven't heard of. Ooh, that's why I like going through this book. Like, oh, let's go to this one and let's rent this one. I appreciate that. With all the research that you had to do and getting these photos, how long did it take you to put this particular book together?
Well, again, I was starting with an existing book, so
Yeah,
that helped. I mean, I did do some revisions of that, and I swapped out a few photos and rewrote a few little things here and there.
yeah,
But that being said, the rest of it, I started working on this 2 years ago, and I had a very long deadline. So I spent more than a year, but it wasn't consistent. I was doing other things along the way because I had this luxury of a lot of time. So
yeah.
it's kind of hard to say exactly how long it took. I mean, it took over a year, but I probably only really needed 6 or 7 months. Don't tell my editor that,
I won't.
or for
I'll bleep that
next
out.
book, I'll get less time.
It's like, uh-oh, now he's gonna another turnaround. Also, tell us about your education and your early career that led you to becoming a classic movie author and film historian.
Sure. Well, I I was imbued with a love of movies at an early age by my father, who grew up in the 30s and 40s in Brooklyn and loved movies, loved Warner Brothers movies of the 40s in particular. He showed them to me as a young child, so I got used to Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney and Barbara Stanwyck, Betty Davis at a very early age. And I've just never lost the love that he instilled in me. Then I went to college at Wesleyan University in Connecticut, which has a fantastic film program that combines film history and appreciation with filmmaking. It's very much geared towards using old films to learn how filmmakers and why filmmakers make certain choices to dictate audience response. And it was a really rich program led by Janine Basinger, wonderful woman who's still a good friend of mine, who I dedicated this book to, by the way. And after Wesleyan, I made a few short films and just moved to LA, started getting jobs at agencies and as a reader and working for a director as his assistant, production jobs, office jobs, all kinds of things. And then I just sort of gradually fell into freelance writing and wrote for several magazines and online outlets, started writing for the TCM website 20 years ago. Wow. And then and which I still do. And that association then has led to me doing these books for them and also taking part in their film festival. I help program that, and I often will appear to introduce films. And I've been on TCM a few times to present some films. So it's very gratifying.
Yes, so we do like seeing you. We expect you to be a host one day. We love TCM and the TCM Film Festival. I kept been covering that for 10 years and been going to it. I think this is the 15th year. I think this one coming up in 2024, right? Oh, I can't believe it.
It's the 15th year, but it's not the 15th festival because they took a couple years off for
COVID. Yes, so that's true. So yeah, that's true. So then they did the virtual one, I think, right after the COVID because they kind of had to. So yes, that's true. But yeah, they're amazing. So that's one cool thing. So folks, I'm going to say something very shocking. Christmas is a week from today. Okay, folks, a week from today. So you've got to get Jeremy's book and get it ordered so that one for yourself and one for all your family members. This is an amazing book. We all love Christmas and movies. So what a great gift this will make for you. Jeremy, what are you working on next?
I'm not sure what the next will be. There's a couple of different book ideas I have that I'm writing proposals for. I don't really want to get into details until I know it's happening, but one is about a particular classic film, sort of a deep dive into its making, and the other one is a biography, or at least a study of the films of a studio era star who I like. So the things I like to write about aside from Christmas movies tend to be on the more esoteric side, so I don't know that I can if I'll be able to get these going or not, but we'll see.
Well, we look forward to that. So what did you ask Santa for?
Oh, well, I did ask Santa through my brother for a book by Scott Eyman about called Charlie Chaplin versus America that just came out, which I very much want to read. I know Scott, and he's a really great writer. So there's that. But otherwise, I'm just looking forward to spending, a week with family, nieces, nephews around, other family members, and just, a week from today, after Christmas arrives, my busy work of promoting this book will be done because I have learned that the day after Christmas, no one's interested in Christmas movies anymore. Except for nerds like me and maybe you.
Yeah, I love them all the time, just like Christmas music. So that's fine. Do you have social medias we can our viewers or listeners can find you on?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I refuse to call it X at JT_ARN. And I'm on Facebook, Jeremy T. Arnold. So yes, people can find me there.
Very good. We thank you for taking the time to talk to us here at the Hollywood Times. We will be putting this up on our YouTube channel, which is the Hollywood Times official. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to talking to you again when the next books come out.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you too.